Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Theatre Arts Society Talkback for the Department of Drama's Theatre Extra production of The Atomic Age. My name is Bryce Popolars, and I'm a first-year representative for TAS. We've collected questions, and we'll be asking them on behalf of the audience today. First, I'd like to give you a huge congratulations to you all for such a fantastic show. We'll get you to each introduce yourselves by giving us your name, pronouns if you like, and your position on the show.
I can start. I'm Jess Syret. My pronouns are she, her. I'm the playwright and costume designer.
I'm Kay Carter. I use they, he pronouns, and I was the sound designer.
I'm Graydon McKay. I use he, him pronouns, and I was the director.
My name is Brooke Ross. I use she, they pronouns, and I was the stage manager.
I'm Lori Glover. I use she, her pronouns, and I played poet.
I'm Jess Nguyen. My pronouns are she, they, and I played sis.
I'm Dean DePalma. My pronouns are he, him, and I played Blight.
I'm Casey Chase. My pronouns are they, them, and I played remember.
Right on. So this first question is for Kay and Jess Syret. So the song "And She Was" by the Talking Heads is featured very heavily in the piece. And if you'd just like to speak to the process of implementing that and implementing the repetition of it into the show.
It was sort of like I have this specific type of anxiety that's triggered by repetitive sounds, and I kind of wanted to see what I could do with that on the page. And She Was just ended up being the song for it, but I can't speak to the Herculean task of implementing it.
Yeah, this is a really interesting show in terms of I've never worked on a script that had sound as such a heavy element to the point of it being almost like characteristic. So it was really interesting to tackle in terms of that. And the script outlines sort of like hints towards different ways that this repeats. Like there's one where it's just skipping. And so I made an entire cue that was like a CD track skipping the entire time. It was a long process making all of those edits, but I think it's really interesting in terms of how like tonally it creates a lot of different shifts throughout. I think probably one of the funniest parts of the process was talking about pre-show with Graydon, and I kind of made a joke of like, what if we just had "And She Was" playing on repeat? And we both kind of went, yeah, yeah, that's what it's gotta be. And so it's just "And She Was" on a loop, and I don't know how many people actually noticed, but it's been a bit of a roller coaster with that song. I went from like, hey, this is pretty good, to like, oh my god, I never want to listen to this again. But it came back around. I love that song.
Right on. So Lori and Dean, the show is very heavy in fight choreography. Could you speak to the process of implementing that?
Yeah, I can start. Well, Carson was our fight choreographer, and he kind of just like had it all laid out. And it was very much like go slow, make sure everyone's comfortable, and then it was just figuring out where it was in the script that we were actually supposed to like, okay, now we do this. But yeah, it's been, in my opinion, it's been a very like safe and fun process.
Yeah, and then also we had like a safety coach, Carter. I'm not the official position.
We had a fight consultant.
A fight
Carter
consultant.
Debuchet.
Yeah, I like the certification, and when we're implementing the fight choreo, he made sure what we were doing is like safe, and like if it wasn't possible to do certain things that Carson wanted to choreograph, we changed it around and stuff. And every night now we go through and do all our fight choreo, make sure every single night we're doing it right and safe, and we're all comfortable with it.
Graydon, can you speak to the thought behind the religious imagery used in the piece?
Oh, boy, can I! A lot of that was inherent in the script, and it was, I would say, hidden in the script at points, because we had like many readings of the script, and every time I would be like, oh, that's actually a reference to this. So with that, I wanted to really heighten that. That's why there is like a lot of religious imagery in the blocking and the way stuff is done. It was like, I myself am not versed in Christianity that well, but I love researching it. So there was a lot of that, and I remember so often in our first read through, I would be like, do you guys get that reference? And it would just a constant throughout of like, it was like the core of what I wanted. The core of like, there was like two things that the script was really saying about like a very personal thing and a very faithful thing. And I found the faith and the intermixing of it in like new and interesting ways was something I really wanted to like heighten, and I always included that. And I had like so many pictures of like old religious statues and different things that I would use, and I would be like, all right, at this point, you guys are gonna do this, or you're gonna have to put your hand like this because it'll look really like this statue. So it was a constant throughout the process. And I really enjoyed getting to play in that realm.
Wonderful. Jess Nguyen, your character has an incredibly commanding stage presence. Can you speak to the process of developing that?
Oh my. It was so fun. It was the first time I really played a character like that. I usually play like characters who are like they just like don't really have the power, so it was fun to actually try and find that power just both within myself as an actor and then really delve into that character and connect with them in a way where you like both mesh. And I mean, Graydon really helped me with that through like exercises, and then Casey Hall came in and really helped with that as well. And yeah, it was quite a bit of work, but then in the end it just all came together.
I think my favorite thing that we ever did was we'd blocked out an entire scene and we were feeling iffy about it. And I secretly put Jess to the side and went, I'm gonna make everyone do the scene normally, but you can do whatever you want. And we got like so many moments of like people being like backing away from you and people like looking all around like something's wrong. And I was like, and that's what is in the show now.
It's fun when people don't want to be near you.
Right on. KC, what was the process of developing a character for an absurdist piece such as this one?
Well, we actually did like a lot of exercises with this. Specifically, I'm considered like my character is considered quite like a rank below cis, but we both work together to kind of heighten our superiority and such. And I think Remember really works in Absurdist, specifically because how perfect and narrow everything is. And it's very out of place, and I really enjoyed that aspect of Remember. It's very fun to just put things away. It tickles the cleaning part of my brain that really likes cleaning. I think it's quite fun because you can also play with like comedic as well. So I really enjoyed that part.
Awesome. Brooke, there's a lot of blood in the piece. What did the behind the scenes of that look like?
Well, we have a very wonderful props and special effects coordinator, Autumn. She went through a very long process of figuring out different blood, and especially the edible blood that Lori has to eat. It's fun filling blood capsules every night. Yeah.
Great. So this is another one for Jess, Syrat, and Graydon. There's a lot of tally marks throughout the stage. Can you speak to those and to the cyclical aspects of this piece?
Oh, just giving it all away.
The play like didn't start as a loop, but the more and more I wrote it, it kind of like told me it was a loop, and I was doing a lot of work a lot of research about absurdism, and they weren't quite literally cyclical, but they often kind of end the same way they begin. And I went, okay, I'm gonna do that literally. And the tally marks just kind of came up as this way to show the audience like the weight of how many times this has happened, like the idea of looking at an X amount of tally marks and going, oh, this has happened that many times. And also just to make it clear it was a loop when the language is a little vague and nonsensical. It was a practical thing as well as like a fun.
Oh yeah, I think that like that entire aspect of like the cycle portion of it is what really like drew me to like not just the script but like wanting to do it and wanting to direct it. It was one of my favorite parts, and it begged like so many questions, and it brought so much stuff up, and we would always talk about that in rehearsal of like, well, they've done it a lot. What happened in the cycle before this? What's going to happen after? Like, I remember there was one of my favorite things we talked about was, well, there was probably a portion way at the beginning where everything was super nice and super clean, and then there's probably a version hundreds and hundreds of cycles in the future where Poet's like a skeleton with muscles and blood all over them, and it's gross and it's horrific, and it was so great. And I was like, we always wanted to really craft a world. In our first pitch, we always said we want to make this its own thing that you have to step into, and the design helped with that a lot, and all of that elevated, and I take such sick pleasure in the no bows of it all, because not only does it bookends the piece so good to have the staging the exact same as it started, but it also is so hilarious to watch everyone be like, oh, it's done. And I have to step over Lori, and everybody has to rush out so Lori can finally stand up. Yeah, super fun aspect of the piece.
Awesome. So finally, we always like to ask folks for a highlight in the process or of the final show. So just going down the line, just tell us your favorite part.
I think the first read through, because I'd never heard the script I'd heard it read out loud, but in the neutral way that you're supposed to read draft work, and then hearing it read by actors to act. I didn't know how funny and heartbreaking it was until I heard it for the first time, so it's a bit surreal.
I think my highlight is every time Last Train to London plays. Definitely finishing my cue list. Once I got to adding in Last Train to London, it was this huge catharsis of I don't have to listen to And She Was a million times again. But then ever since being in rehearsals, being able to implement that sound, every time we get to that song, it's just a little funky little time, and it's so fun, and it just it's such a nice release at the end of every show.
I would say the beginning of the process was very, very fun, because we got to, before we even started doing a ton of script work, we did a lot of just acting and character work and workshopping, and we did a bunch of stuff based off of the acting styles and teachings of Michael Chekhov, who was a big influence of mine, and we just got to do these fun, just actors being actors in space, and that was the most fun. Everything came so easy and so great because of these guys. I never felt like I wasn't on the same page as them, and we would have so many great moments just even throughout the process where we would just do a scene and we would talk about it and go that's really sad. I'd go, yeah. Sad, violent, brutal play, but it was always so fun to do with everybody.
My favorite highlight of every show I've ever been in, including this one, is opening night. There's something about sitting in the booth with your little book in front of you and watching people come in, and it's such a good feeling.
I'm gonna agree with Graydon and say character work and just being hey, at the core, what is this emotion? How do you take that away from your brain and into your body, and just working towards yes, this character is absurd, but they have real wants and they act this specific way, so that was so much fun.
Mine's same vein, different work a bit. Because my favorite day of rehearsal was when Casey Hall came and pulled me and Casey out, and we were just screaming at each other in the other room. That was the day where it clicked for me, where I was okay, I know how powerful Sis is and how powerful I have to be. Because then afterwards we went back into the main room, we all went together, and then I got to yell at Dean. And then it was just the dynamics. That's when I really, I understood them so much better. And then really, especially between Sis and Blight, that's when it really just, everything started happening.
It was during one of the Michael Chekhov workshops, probably, and we're working on it. And then it was we kept repeating this one thing over and over, specific to our characters. And I don't know, it just really spoke to me. I think it was the first time I ever teared up while acting, and I was damn, this is really powerful stuff.
I gotta say, even though I don't have very much fight choreo, I loved watching it happen in front of me. I liked just seeing everything work through and be built up to its show speed and stuff, and I'm just wow, they're punching each other, and it looks really good even from where I'm standing. I love the kick. It's just great. It was really fun.
Awesome. On behalf of Theater Art Society, we'd like to thank you all for taking the time to join us today and answer some of the questions that the audience had. We truly value your time and effort and appreciate you being here today. The Theater Arts Society can be found on both Instagram and Facebook at Theater Arts Society. There you can find information on what's coming up in the drama department and in the Lethbridge drama community. I'd once again like to congratulate the cast for an amazing run, and thank you all for taking the time to tune into our talkbacks. Keep an eye out for the drama department's main stage production of Tomorrow Love and the talkback that will be happening for that. Thank you, and have a wonderful night. Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Theater Arts Society talkback for the Department of Drama's Theater.